Hello everyone, in today's segment of Rant or Reason, I'm going to be talking about the armed protest that happened in Michigan last Thursday. But before we get to that, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss a notification. But anyways, hundreds of anti-lockdown protesters, some of which carried weapons like AR-15s, stormed the state capitol in Michigan. They stormed the state capitol that's located in Lansing, Michigan. And this was during a session in which a few state legislators convened to consider a measure that was going to reverse the Democratic governor Gretchen Whitmer's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The protesters and many of the legislators, they both argue that the governor's orders, which are among the most stringent in the country, are too excessive. And on Wednesday, the Republican-led state legislator, they sued the governor, and this was an attempt to try to obstruct her emergency order initiatives. And this protest incited criticism from across the political spectrum, especially from Fox commentator Sean Hannity. And when a Trump groupie and corporate propagandist like Sean Hannity is saying that the show of force of the protest is dangerous, you know that this situation is pretty bad. This protest is actually the largest in Michigan since April 15th, when Trump allies organized thousands of people for Operation Gridlock. And this protest, it blocked the streets of Lansing, and this is, again, it's in retaliation towards Whitmer's lockdown orders. And yeah, the general sentiments that the protesters had was that Whitmer was she was overreaching. Her orders were just an example of big government. So I'm going to show you how now the statistics of Michigan, and they're not pretty. Michigan is in fact one of the most hardly hit states, as in it's one of the states that's really been impacted by this pandemic. They have already 4,250 deaths from COVID, and that's more than all of Canada, mind you. And in total, they have 45,054 confirmed cases. Their fatality rate from COVID, which is deaths divided by cases, is 9.4%. And that's the highest fatality rate of any US state per data from the NPR and New York Times. They also have the 7th most COVID cases in the States, and they are roughly tied with Massachusetts for 3rd most deaths. And the virus is disproportionately affecting African Americans. That's a sad reality that's really plagued this country throughout this whole pandemic. In fact, about 32% of cases and 41% of deaths in Michigan are from African American people. And that's even despite the fact that they only make up 14% of the state population. But I doubt many of the protesters give a crap about that, because let's be honest, they represent the Make America Great Again faction of the states, and let's be real, they're not the brightest when it comes to social issues, or any issues, to be honest. Honestly, I don't want to hear anyone saying that white privilege is fiction or whatever, because if these protesters were black or brown, we would definitely be seeing way more arrests. There would be way more assaults and shit, probably even some deaths, because black and brown people in that country have been killed for way less. So don't come at me with any of that BS, man. And this Operation Gridlock, they've organized similar anti-lockdown protests throughout the country, like in states like Washington, Colorado, I believe even in Tennessee. There's a number of different states that have had these anti-lockdown protests. And Trump was even saying how he's a very good people. And he was even urging Governor Whitmer to liberate the economy. But the funny part of that is that he wants to liberate the economy, yet Trump and Republican leaders like Mitch McConnell, they don't even want to provide adequate additional funding to states or whatever. And he was even saying how, Trump was even saying how the blue states or whatever are doing bad because of years of mismanagement and all this kind of stuff. And he was saying, oh, the red states are doing terrific, barely any debt. But that's obviously nonsense. Missouri and Florida, those are red states. They're doing pretty bad. And even Maryland, they're showing economic problems of their own. Like, for example, Larry Hogan, who's the Republican governor of Maryland, he was saying how his state is facing a nearly $3 billion dollar budget deficit, budget shortfall this year. So this is not just something that's happening in the blue states. The red states are also affected by this too, but yet again, they're just showing, the politicians in DC are just showing yet again that they're only here to serve their corporate donors, and the regular working people, it just don't even matter. They can't even bail out the states or whatever because they're worried about the deficit. You need to do deficit spending. It's it's an unprecedented time, but these guys don't care and they can't tell their ass from their elbow. So, well, I mean, what do they know? And to a certain extent, that I can actually understand why some people are engaging in these anti-lockdown protests, even though they're largely just very stupid and counterproductive. But I understand some of them because, like as I was alluding to earlier, like the federal government hasn't given people adequate money to stay at home. A $1,200 one-time payment is just not enough for people to just be in quarantine and still pay their bills. Like there's not even mortgage freezes or anything. How the hell are you gonna pay all your bills with just $1,200? And then meanwhile, Steve Mnuchin, so he can just loot the treasury and just give out money like candy to like corporate donors. Like it's sick. But that's just the current state of the country right now, and hopefully this whole situation will make more people realize that a lot of these politicians are just corporate sellouts. But anyways, thank you so much for listening, guys. Until next time.